Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's Monday and it's beginning of a new week, June 9th, it's known as in some quarters. It's 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock at Gavin Newsom's house. And welcome to the morning meeting. Sean is I can't tell you where Sean is, but they pronounce the word lobster, lobster. That's all I can say about where Sean is. The sign is spelled wrong, Sean. There's an ER. It should really be an A or two A's.
It's an A and an H.
An A and an
A&H, yeah,
H.
yeah.
The way, how would Matt Damon say that word?
That's more Boston.
Yeah.
So there's a little, in fact, if you ever, I think I just posted the Providence Journal last night did an entire thing on Rhode Island dialects. That's fascinating.
Really? How
Uh,
many are there?
Apparently multiple, which is
More,
interesting.
more, more than in all of China.
Wow.
Just that's how
Yeah,
many there are. That's how
it's
many there are.
wicked crazy when you think
It
about it.
is. It is wicked crazy.
They made
I
people, by the way, I'll post this to my Instagram, but they made people say three different sentences that had the word coffee, market, car, cart, and law enforcement
this
in them.
is this is fucking brilliant, and I'm using profanity to express my solidarity with the people of New England who use that
But
word as
then,
a
but
noun, as a gerund,
But then
adjective.
they went around on a map. It was I will tell you this. It's worth. I thought
Is
this
it
was going to
is it
kill me.
behind a paywall?
No, I'm going to post it right now to my story on
All right.
Instagram.
Walking Duck, if we can get this for the back half of the show, we may devote the final 30 minutes to Rhode Island dialects because I'm serious. Couldn't like you more. Anyway, Dan, welcome.
I'll
Uh,
send
Thank
it.
you.
you apparently have posted a lot of family pictures over the weekend on Instagram, I'm told. I didn't see them, but is
I
that true?
posted two. Yeah, we were
Too? I
celebrating my
heard
in-laws. Yep.
I heard from
Yep.
people who said what an attractive family you have. That's what I heard.
The wicked great.
They're wicked great. Is Dan frozen? Am I frozen? What's going
I'm
on?
not frozen.
Is
Dan's
Dan
frozen.
frozen? Dan is frozen.
Or
I
or he was
yeah.
so taken by your description of his
Yeah.
family.
Well, it
Yeah,
wasn't
I
my
just
description. Just to be clear, others told me your family's quite handsome. In
Many
any
people
event,
say.
many are saying if you're here on the two-way platform and you want to be part of the conversation about Dan's family and their attractiveness, about Rhode Island accents, or about Los Angeles burning down, please raise your hand. We'd love to have you be part of the conversation. And maybe today we'll say that if three people don't raise their hand and get in, then we'll cancel the show. Maybe. Haven't decided yet. If you're watching on X or on two-way, or on YouTube, this platform believes in peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace for all, even for people who wield Mexican flags as they throw free scooters from overpasses onto private property or to attack government officials. Even for them, we extend the presumption of grace and we wish them all the best, but we wish they would stop doing that. Thank you for being part of the morning meeting. This program is based on the network news division's morning meetings, in which they gather their bureaus from around the world electronically, run through the day's events, kick things around, but our added O. Henry twist, we will take your questions and comments. So please raise your hand if you want to be part of the conversation. The president called an audible over the weekend and decided to go to Camp David, where he was yesterday, and he's supposed to be returning, as they say in the media, at this hour. Sean, any idea why the president went to Camp David? It said he was meeting with his military advisors. Was this about LA? What was this about?
I don't know. Presumably LA. I mean, you're calling it a National Guard. It makes sense. And it's
Yeah.
a great place. I mean, it's much easier to get them to Camp David logistically than to try to get everyone up to Bedminster and then house them, et cetera. And it's obviously got the secure facilities, et cetera. So I assume that had to do with LA, but you never know. I mean, there's obviously a lot on his plate these days with respect to Ukraine and Russia. I mean, Ukraine and Russia and Hamas. And so who knows? And maybe that was just the great excuse to do it. But um, and also, it's just a great it sounds good. He's off to Camp David to meet with his military advisor. So I think
Yeah.
it
But why wouldn't he just go back to White House? Is there a golf course at Camp David? I can't remember.
no.
I didn't
I think
think so.
there's a putting
So
green
yeah. So why go to Camp David? Why not just go back to the White House? It's a little
because I think
confusing.
I think part of it is, well, one,
Just
there's always an attempt to use it. And I say that in all seriousness because it's staffed 24/7, 365. And
but I
so
thought he hates it.
that's not true. Actually, I don't
Okay.
think he loves the social piece, but he went there during the first term. We put together a whole thing to go out, and he actually spoke very kindly of it. I just don't think he likes the fact that there's no one there.
yeah. He likes the history. I think, from my understanding, he likes the history. It's a little rustic for him.
Yeah.
And there's no Mar-a-Lago patio, right? There's no like,
That's not, there's no one. I
yeah,
mean, you're
yeah,
that's the opposite. Most people go
yeah,
to Camp David because you get
yeah,
away.
yeah,
It's solitude. You can take a walk by yourself. He's like,
yeah.
where's everybody?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, he's coming back from Camp David. His one event today is at 2 p.m. White House press pool coverage of participation in an Invest America roundtable. I say with all honesty, I haven't had time to look into what the heck that is. So we'll see. J.D. Vance, don't know what he's doing. 3 cabinet secretaries, Bessent, Lutnick, Greer, all in London for trade talks with the Chi-Coms.
By the way, I will say I will not be surprised if there's something about visa reform in that Invest in America. Obviously, he's been talking about the gold card. You've got EB-5. There's a lot of things out there that this is, if I had to guess, that's been what Howard Lutnick's been kind of projecting for a while.
Yes. All right. Wholesale inventory out of 10. House and Senate are in. Lots of conversations in the Senate side, of course, about reconciliation. Quickly, let's dip into MSNBC because our first topic is immigration, and Tom Homan is making a rare appearance on what Donald Trump would call MSDNC.
DNC, yeah.
Underdeclared over $80 million in goods. Failed to pay $17 million in fees. And it's part of an overall conspiracy on numerous businesses that they believe that some of this money is being laundered in Mexico and Colombia to fund cartel activity. So this was a criminal investigation that they all responded to in the beginning. That's how it all started. But the facts never got out. Even though we put the facts out, the media didn't cover it. They just said immigration raids, we're separating families and all the negative information we hear all the time. We took a lot of bad people off the street last couple of days. A Vietnamese national that attended a graduation party was kicked out and came back and killed 2 young people, two young Americans. We arrested a child predator. We arrested someone for sexual misconduct. Someone arrested for convicted of armed robbery. We arrested numerous gang members. What ICE did the last couple of days is make Los Angeles safer by taking public safety threats off the street.
Is everyone that has been arrested by ICE agents have a criminal record like those you've described?
Absolutely not. And I said from day one, January 20th, we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats. However, we will enforce law. I may prioritize my family life over my work. Doesn't mean I ignore my work. We're going to force the immigration law. We've been honest about that from day one, especially in sanctuary cities. Well, we can't get the bad guy in the safety and security of a jail. They release him to the street. Well, we got to go to the street and find them. And when we find them, many times they're with others. Others that are in the United States illegally may not be a criminal target, but guess what? If ICE is there arresting that bad guy and other aliens are there, we're going to arrest them. That's what sanctuary cities get. They put us in the neighborhood, they force us in the neighborhood. This is what happens.
Well, that sort of action there you're describing has met with a lot of pushback from local officials, the mayor of Los Angeles, and the governor, who's also very critical of the National Guard being deployed, suggesting that's
we'll keep monitoring this.
Some of these
keep monitoring this. It's just incredible. There's so much incredible aspects of this. Dan and I were texting about it this morning. Let's just start 80,000 feet. Dan, what's your overall view of what's happening with the local officials, state officials, federal officials, and the kind of things Tom Homan's just talking about?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think 3 things. One, is Donald Trump potentially playing politics a little bit? Yeah, I think he probably is. I find it hard to believe the timing is not a coincidence that he had a bad end to last week. That said, and this is politics in general, this both parties engage in stuff like that. I think the Democratic Party's kind of lost its mind. I think that you cannot tolerate that people are harming government property and harming federal officials executing the job that the president or the secretary of DHS or whomever has ordered them to do. Like, you just simply cannot do this. I mean, it's somewhat of a rough analogy, but in the civil rights era, when we went to try to enforce civil rights and local government officials said, we're not going to help you, we're not going to activate our National Guard, we're not going to do anything, we cheered that people went in to help execute the law. And I think that for us to say that, and I think one of the reasons Newsom and Bass at first didn't really move is they didn't really see a problem with it. Like, okay, there's a little bit of violence, okay, but like, this is okay because it's in the name of what we believe, which is to not help enforce immigration. we've always talked about at some point, good, kind of normal people are going to start getting swept up, whether it's the bus boy or the people at Home Depot getting ready to try to go paint a house or pick up day labor work. But the bottom line is you cannot tolerate people in this country illegally, or anybody banging on cars, throwing rocks at people. You just can't allow that. It looks like a third world country.
Yeah, so I'll associate myself with the gentleman from New York in a moment of bipartisanship. I've said this before, so I'll say it again, just in terms of the way you asked the question, Mark. But there's always a question of policy versus politics. And sometimes you get the policy right and the politics wrong, and vice versa. President Trump got both right this time. And just for everyone who, to Dan's point about the moment, hat tip Audra for pointing this out. I believe it was last night in our group chat. But go to the LA Times.
Yeah.
Not exactly a Republican bastion about the TikTok. This was a Democrat assemblyman who saw a bunch of ICE agents going to their own facility, to their job. And he said, I'm going to live stream this because I think something's going to happen, and basically incited all of these people to come. This wasn't Trump manufacturing something. This was a Democrat assemblyman actually encouraging people to gather for a moment that he didn't know what was going to happen, but just assumed it would. It then escalated. To Dan's point, there was violence, there was vandalism, there was destruction, and yet the Democrats, once again, my goodness, I cannot believe this. When the choice was between law and order and criminals, they chose the criminals. When the choice was between U.S. citizens and people in this country illegally, they chose the people in this country illegally. I cannot believe how many times this is like Lucy with the football every single time. You guys take the bait, and it's just more gaslighting. Peaceful protests, everybody. Don't worry about that car on fire behind us. Don't worry about all the people waving Mexican flags and cheering death to America in masks. Where's Hakeem Jeffries worried about the masks now? Last week he was all worried about the ICE agents. But when people start burning a cop car and throwing Molotov cocktails, well, they're allowed to wear masks now. This, I cannot believe it shouldn't be this easy in politics.
The Democrats and the press should be scrutinizing everything the Trump administration does on everything, including immigration, whether what he's doing is legal, whether they're accidentally sweeping up American citizens, whether they're taking people out of communities who are really enmeshed in their communities, even if they're here illegally, whether it's being done as a distraction. All these things should be scrutinized, whether there's excessive force being used by federal officials, whether civilian or military. All these things should be scrutinized. But the basic question of, can Donald Trump and ICE remove people from this country who are here illegally? And if there are violent attacks on private property or government officials while they're doing that, whether that should be accepted, that shouldn't be in debate. And the scrutiny from the press and the Democrats should not be, in this instance, on this particular point, on whether Donald Trump is doing something political or whether it's unprecedented, quote unquote, to use federal National Guard. The scrutiny should be on people in this country illegally and people who are using violence to interfere with federal law enforcement or to destroy private property. It's crazy what's happening. The coverage is crazy. If you say, well, there are peaceful protests, and peaceful protests should, of course, be protected. But there's one car on fire, too much. One car on fire to try to protest or interfere, too much. I'll say two more things, and then I'll show you some elements. There's not a police force in the country, with the possible exception of Gotham City, who can provide the physical infrastructure needed in a situation like this. Not one. And certainly not LA, and certainly not these smaller communities around LA. Governor Newsom and all the mayors should be thanking the federal government and the National Guard for trying to provide the infrastructure that the police force can't do. And the police force went from saying, oh, these are peaceful protests, we got it handled on Friday, to yesterday saying, this is a big problem, we can't handle it. You know why they can't handle it? No one can. Sorry, go ahead.
But there's one other small point that's not getting coverage, and I hope that the Trump administration makes it. If this was a riot in any city and local law enforcement couldn't hold it back, and Donald Trump said, well, screw it, you can't handle it, I'm going to take care of it. I would still argue that at the end of the day, it is the job of a government official to protect the citizens of its people. And if somebody won't do it, then somebody else should. But in this case, there's a nuance. And the nuance is this. There are people attacking federal agents at a facility, and the federal government has a right to protect itself and its assets. And this is something that is not being brought up.
100%.
The Trump administration isn't going there because they have an absolute 100. And frankly, if the local police and state officials won't defend the federal government, then it would be malpractice for Donald Trump, the federal government.
And that is where, Sean, I think that they are sending a signal to other cities.
As they should.
That's what I was just going to say, because increasingly, and look, I watch conservative media, I watch liberal media because I want to try to see what's going on. In the last few weeks, conservative media has been picking up some of the kind of friction that's being put in place in front of ICE agents all over the country, primarily in blue cities, trying to do their job, right? Hasn't reached this level, but it's been kind of inching up with confrontation. And I think to your point, Mark, they are saying we are drawing the line. Like, this has got to stop. You have to let them do their job. If this starts to get physical, as you say, we have a duty to protect them as they should.
Trump doesn't have the right to do it. He has the obligation. For the families of these ICE agents expect their loved ones to be protected. And I don't often say shoe is on the other foot, but imagine if Barack Obama was doing something with federal officials and right-wing protesters started to attack them. Imagine what the coverage would be like. I've seen a lot of coverage in the last couple of days in the dominant media, both LA local and national. I've not seen a single mention of the danger to our civic society and law and order, not one mention of the attacks on federal law enforcement officials doing not just their job, but what President Trump has made central to his campaign for a decade, and they can say, well, this is about tear gassing a 4-year-old in a stroller. Take your daughter home.
Yeah.
If there's tear gas. This is not a joke. This is not a political drama. This is the federal government trying to restore order to the United States by fulfilling a campaign promise regarding people in this country illegally, both people who committed crimes only when they came here and people who've committed serious or non-serious crimes since they've come here. But this coverage is a joke. It is a joke.
And let's also not forget that it started to look a little reminiscent of Portland during the George Floyd stuff. Cities got out of control, and Democrats thought because the protests are a good cause that it's good trouble. It's okay. The rest of the country was horrified at this. Yeah, so for us to go down this road again is political insanity.
Thank you. I mean, that's why I keep saying the policy and the politics don't always, sync up. But this time they are. And I cannot believe for everything that's happened, the default of the Democrats is to side with the people breaking the law and in the country illegally. But I will say, just as a side note, you played in the clip, we heard Tom Homan a moment ago. Keep in mind, they've made it clear over and over again, if we go after a bad guy and we open the door and there's 5 people here who are here illegally, we cannot and we will not just allow them to stay. Yeah. And that's frankly, and what people go, is because can you imagine if they let 4 people stay and 2 of them in 5 years commit? I mean, look at what the guy in Colorado. One of the big issues is he was allowed to stay. He didn't have a record at the time, but Biden didn't do his job. And that we paid the consequences. And there are multiple people still in the hospital because of that. So the Trump administration has an obligation to make sure that in the process, just the same way if a police, if they come to a house and they see something and there's a bunch of guns or drugs, they got to go, hey, we're arresting everybody because you all broke the law. That might not be when they showed up. But if you're in this country illegally, you have been warned. You've been given an opportunity to leave, and maybe you've been able to skate by under Joe Biden. But the bottom line is time is up, and you know it. And if you don't want to go, then you're going to get a free ride out.
Right. All right. Let me show you some elements about first the Democrats and then the press, and say again, How they use the National Guard should be scrutinized. Their policies, who they're deporting, what kind of process they're using to deport people, whether this is somehow political. All of that requires extraordinary scrutiny. But that can be done at the same time that the press and the Democrats acknowledge that it is madness to say that federal law enforcement officials doing their job should be subject to violent attacks, and that if they defend themselves and fight back, that somehow they're causing it. Here is Judd Legum, very smart guy, writes a popular newsletter from the left. Here's number 110. This is what Judd Legum wrote in his Substack today. Although any violence and property destruction is a serious matter, local law enforcement appears fully capable of responding to the situation. No, they don't, and they acknowledge that they don't.
By the way, everyone on the left used to lie without evidence. Like, for all the times that I've heard that phrase come my way, to say that, and you're absolutely, Mark, you're right on the analysis of local, with the exception of the New York City Police Department, there's no one else that can handle it. They can't, and they finally
can't. They can't. So, they can't. They shouldn't be suing the president for activating the National Guard. They should be thanking him. Okay. Now, here is Kamala Harris put out a statement yesterday, one of the longest and most detailed public policy pronouncements she's made since she left office. You can read the whole thing here. I want to point out one phrase. She refers to the people who are being deported as our immigrant neighbors. How's that for a euphemism? Our immigrant neighbors. You can see that there in the second to last paragraph. Again, technically true, but it's as technically true as calling him a Maryland man.
But also the word, look, to some degree, we're all immigrants. This is gaslighting. Listen to Karen Bass's statement yesterday. I've got it written down somewhere because I'm going to use it later in my show. But the bottom line is, she says it's all about, she says, whether they've got papers or not. This is not a clerical error group of people. They are in the country illegal. There's a legal definition according to U.S. code. They are illegal aliens. That is the law, right? And for all these people that gaslight us, pretend that like they're equal to everyone. There are immigrant brothers and sisters. They're without papers. No, they're illegally in the country. And when this is seriously, the thing I cannot get over is between the Russia hoax, COVID, the Maryland man. It's like, dude, at some point politically, it shouldn't be this easy, because the Democratic Party continues to alienate people who actually currently can vote in this country.
Yeah. All right. 109. Here's Gavin Newsom inviting MSNBC into his command center and being indignant about what's happening. 109.
The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
So, Dan, again, be vigilant. But what are they talking about? What are they so indignant about? The president as ICE to engage in these operations across the country. One area they're doing them in is blue areas and blue cities. And they start the operation, and people are scared. And again, my heart goes out to these families and the kids. They're here in the country legally. They're trying to earn a living. They're worried about what might happen if they come out of the shadows, but they're here illegally. They chose to come here illegally. And the kids, they chose to bring their kids or to have kids while they're here. So what should Democrats be saying just about the piece of deportations and the use of the National Guard? What's the right thing for Democrats to say?
Look, the right thing to do is to protest this at the ballot box, right? Which we just tried to do and we lost. And I think the problem for the party is in these blue districts, they are taking as a point of pride, we will not cooperate, right? They're passing local city council ordinances saying our police will not cooperate with ICE aides. In Los Angeles, the sheriff's department is going out of its way to say our deputies are not participating in ICE raids. What they are participating in, as is their duty, is to protect ICE officers, right, who are doing their job. And obviously they're now struggling with that. I think the problem is the party is so consumed with Trump and so consumed with looking tough and standing up and like a fight. But like this is not their place to have that fight. If you want to say, look, we're going to tear the economy apart if we try to deport 20 million people, most of whom are, just community members and they run businesses and whatever. Okay. But like, we just tried that a little bit. We lost. They're executing the law. So, I mean, I think for the party, the question is, what is our solution to all these people that are here illegally? What do we want to do?
Yes.
And I think we still keep saying, no, we're just not going to cooperate.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that's the problem right now is that you guys don't have an answer. And you're absolutely right, Dan. The poll is the far left, which is where the base is, won't allow a reasonable discussion of this. Because if you remember, what, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we were talking about a deal that would allow people who were in DACA, et cetera, to get something. I think that debate has sailed. It's not even close to being able to occur again. But 3 things on Gavin Newsom. 1, that guy does indignant better than anyone else. 2, he's 100% running for president. And 3, as for Tom Homan, if I were Tom Homan, I would just let me be clear on this. Gavin Newsom couldn't spend 20 minutes at an outdoor Cub Scout jamboree, so he couldn't probably handle 5 minutes in the most minimum security prison. Arrest him and see how he does.
Well, I think too. I mean, I want to just flag for Gavin Newsom. Like, he's going to, I think, likely run for president or wants to. He's had 2 big moments in his state this calendar year: the wildfires and now this. I don't think he's come across very well. Like, if I'm looking for leadership, in the wildfires, he looked like a deer in headlights, and he didn't have answers. He was running from reporters. He was getting accosted by his own citizens. Like, what the heck's going on? And now you're digging in to basically protect people. Whatever the politics, the optics of this are horrific. You have a major city in your state with people who are here illegally, not waving American flags, waving Mexican flags, attacking U.S. property, federal officials, police cars, lighting them on fire, blocking highways. And that's what you're it says to the rest of the country, like, these are our values. This is what we're okay with.
Dan, all I have to say is, I of course you're right about the politics, but it's also the wrong thing.
Yeah, of course.
It's wrong. It's wrong.
I agree.
It's bad policy. It's bad policy for the Los Angeles area.
Yeah.
I understand people don't want the person who sells them mango at the park to leave the country because they want to buy mango at the park, but they're here illegally. And the people who say it's great to be buy mango at the park, they should talk to the folks who are adversely impacted by 20 million people being here illegally.
Well, look, Mark, I will push back a little bit. The people of Los Angeles may say we are okay with having a large illegal immigration population that's a part of our economy, right? I mean,
then they should elect a president who agrees with them.
And that's where I was going to go. It's like, look, I understand that there are tens of millions of people who disagree with this public policy, but we just had an election. Yeah. We just did this. And there were tens of millions of Americans who thought civil rights were a bad idea. And we sent the federal government in to protect those citizens and to protect personnel.
All right. We got a lot of hands up, and we wanted to talk about the media on this issue, but let's run through 3 other topics. And if we have time, we'll come back to the media. Just one sentence each. I'm going to mute you if you go more. Yep. Here we go. Just where do these things stand? Sean, what's going to happen in the China-U.S. talks in London? One sentence.
Unclear.
Dan.
A small deal.
Correct. Reconciliation. Sean, we still on track for it to pass the Senate and the House?
When, not if.
Dan.
Well said.
There's a new possibility, that the Senate might have to pass the House bill. Not predicting it, but it might happen. Sean,
that would be
the House
fantastic.
Rolls the Senate. All right, here we go.
That would be the most historic. I mean, like,
it would be, but it might have to happen.
I think Mike Johnson would just like walk over, drop the gavel, not the mic.
He should retire. Like, that's it. You're
Johnson out.
Better than that. Yep.
He would, but that's what might happen. Sean, what's going on with Musk and Trump?
Oh, I mean, I don't mean to say like this is the détente. The JD Vance tweet last night with the flags, like, we're back. This is bros. This is total bros. Every single guy out there has had this in college. You have some bad weekend. The next dude, you see each other at the lunch table in the cafeteria. Like, hey man, what's up? I'll see you Friday. Like, we're just going to pretend it didn't happen. I'm not going to see you for a while. When we see each other, we'll say something kind of like broy, but we're not going to hang for a while, but we're not going to talk about it either. It's over. And it's over.
Dude, it's over, except Elon still needs to write a $400 million check. Dan.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sean. But,
Okay.
but I will add, it'll never be the same.
Oh yeah, dude, 100%. Like this, like I said, we've all had this. Where for now on, when we need a fourth in the threesome in the golf game, you go, what if we call Elon? Guys, we're not calling Elon. Like, it's never gonna happen. But you know, if you see him at the party, you fist bump him, you fake like, hey man, what's going on? Been a while. How you doing? Good. That's as far as it goes.
All right. Late at night over the weekend, number 105, please. Oh, sorry, 104. Terry Moran of ABC News, who recently interviewed the president, who anyone who's worked with Terry Moran can tell you, as I have, is virulently anti-Trump, like most people in the media, got suspended for posting by calling Trump and Stephen Miller haters. It's quite a
little bit more than that.
Well,
That's like
yes,
saying it was a peaceful protest.
yes. I was summarizing. He engaged in a personal invective, particularly against Stephen Miller. And then 103A, Stephen Miller tweets back and says this: the most important fact about Terry's full public meltdown is what it shows about the corporate press in America. For decades, the privileged anchors and reporters narrating and gatekeeping our society have been radicals adopting a journalist pose. Terry pulled off his mask. Again, if you've worked in a newsroom like at ABC News, what Stephen Miller wrote here, completely uncontroversial. Now, maybe radicals goes too far for some, but it's kind of radical to pose as an independent, objective journalist and then open the kimono on Twitter and say Stephen Miller eats hate for breakfast or whatever he said. So now 2 members of the establishment gatekeeping media, ironically, decide to respond to Stephen Miller. First, here's Chuck Todd. Nothing lazier or more transparently dishonest than to take one person's deleted tweet and try to apply the sentiment to an entire group of folks. Ask yourself why he wants to slime any journalist for the sins of one. It's intentionally dishonest and intentionally divisive. And here's Chuck Todd's close personal friend, Chris Cillizza, writing about Terry Moran and Stephen Miller. I hate that Terry Whitworthy wrote, I hate the utter predictability that the Trump folks would immediately weaponize it and use it as evidence that all reporters are bad biased. I hate that we can't just all agree that A, Terry shouldn't have said it, and B, Miller shouldn't have immediately moved to weaponize it, because I can assure you of this, there are journalists out here who are really committed to calling balls and strikes, who really don't root for one side or the other. How do I know? Chris Cillizza says, I am one of them. Sean.
Mark, I am getting breaking news in my ear right now. Let me okay, I've got it now. Jake Tapper has announced another new book, Original Sin, ABC's Decline, its cover-up, and their disastrous hiring choices. Yeah, it's going to be a bestseller. The level of sanctimonious ridiculousness is unbelievable. Again, guys, it's like they can't help it. ABC didn't even comment on Terry Moran. Why do you inject yourself if you're Chuck Todd or Chris Cillizza? ABC, Jonathan Karl hosted an entire political show yesterday without mentioning it. Talk about egregious. And yet you guys inject yourself, Chuck and Chris, into this debate. Come on. The problem is that sometimes you feel the guilt. They know that they feel the same way.
I don't know. I don't know that they do. I got to tell you.
Oh my God. Come on.
Those two guys are outspoken in denying liberal media bias.
Oh, right,
they are.
Right. But it's not. But they're not. I don't.
But you think they know there's liberal media bias and they're just pretending that there isn't?
No, I think that they agree with they don't disagree probably with what Terry said, and so they're kind of feeling like you're.
Well, no, but they're saying they do. I mean, they're saying
I know
Terry only speaks for Terry. And it's wrong for Stephen Miller to broaden it out and say anyone feels the way Terry does. Terry feels that way singularly. That's what they seem to believe. That's what they seem to believe.
By the way, again, the idea that ABC has gotten away without anything and it's CNN that breaks the news, that tells you everything. It's one thing for Terry to say something at 2:06 a.m. on a Saturday night. I'm just saying there might have been something more going on there. Um, hey, Elon. Or but then for ABC not to even mention the fact in a single tweet that, hey, Terry Moran has been suspended from her air. And by the way, a suspension.
It's exactly. No description of the terms of the suspension or the duration.
Right.
Dan, I want to play one more media thing, but do you want to say anything?
No, I don't. I mean, it's so demoralizing for that. Like,
all right,
rant.
All right. One more thing, then we're going to get to your questions. Sean, explain why you wanted to play this clip from the This Week program.
Can we just play it and then I'll explain it? Because I think
sure. Here's a conversation on the This Week program where they didn't mention the suspension of their senior correspondent Terry Moran, but they did talk about the president's desire to have a parade.
I want to show some pictures here of what was coming into Washington over the weekend. We saw a whole line of tanks. Those are tanks. Those are Abrams tanks coming into Washington for the big, beautiful parade, is it? Donna.
Coming into Washington, hopefully to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Army. My daddy was a Korean vet, served in and with valor. So I hope that's why they're coming. I understand that the president is making it about himself, but also remember, this is the 250th anniversary, also the Navy and the Marines. So maybe we'll figure out a way to celebrate those branches of our military as well.
But is there something about it? You know, the Army says $40 million will be their costs for this. That doesn't include the security costs and everything else.
And tearing up our streets in Washington, D.C. I hope they will
pay for. Well, look, with all the conversation we've had about spending over the past week or two, $40 million is a lot of money. But on the other hand, if we're using it truly to celebrate the men and women who have fought and died for this country over the last 250 years, I'm all for it. They deserve that type of praise. They deserve that type of attention. And I hope that what the American people take out of this is that we are pretty lucky, John, pretty lucky to have the men and women who've been willing to fight and sacrifice for us.
So the reason I wanted to play that, and you led into it a little, Mark, is programs can be defined by what they cover and what they don't cover. He chooses not to cover his own country, his own network sins. And yet, listen to Jonathan Karl's voice. He's outraged by the fact that tanks are coming in and that we will spend money celebrating the 250 years of service that millions of Americans have put into the United States Army. Over 1 million Americans have died in service to this country in the Army alone. And Jonathan Karl's outraged that we're going to spend some time and money to honor them. I appreciate Donna thanking the Marine Corps and the Navy for their equal service. The Navy and the Marine Corps are celebrating their 250th year anniversary. There's going to be a celebration in Philadelphia. Donna, don't worry. Chris Christie's comments were absolutely right. The idea that we can stop when we have so much time in this country to glorify pop stars and influencers on social media, to pause for one day and to thank the people, the men and women of the Army in this case, which I wish it was a little broader, for their service and the sacrifice of over 1 million Americans, to give us the freedom to do shows like this and to post crap on the internet and to go on Chinese apps like TikTok is worth the cost. And I appreciate Chris Christie's comments. But the idea that a so-called journalist like Jonathan Karl is outraged by the cost and time to celebrate the U.S. Army and the sacrifice just tells you everything you need to know about him and the priorities of that network. And it really enraged me because again, it's a show is defined by what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And he chose not to cover a ton of other stuff, but to be outraged about the time that's being put on. And by the way, for everyone else, listen to what President Trump has said. Yes, it is his birthday this weekend. I hope he has a good time. But he's been very clear in all of his public pronouncements that he wanted to celebrate the Army, to celebrate the sacrifice and the might, and I'm glad he's doing it. So when I saw that, maybe it's just me, but I literally could not believe that that's how they wanted to spend the final minutes of a show.
I mean, look, to me, this is just silly. Like, a lot of other countries do it. They do these big military parades. You know, it's not something we've done here historically. It's not, it's somewhat, I don't want to say it's un-American, but like, we've not kind of gone to these lengths and spend the money, and they're going to tear up the roads in Washington.
They're taking
no, I know, I get it, but like, look, if that's what Trump wants to do, okay. Like, I mean, celebrate the military. Like I don't, to me, the fact that I read him almost saying like he's putting the tanks there for potential like civil unrest, or which I thought was bizarre, or that it's his birthday celebration. Like it's not a fight that I think people should pick.
All right, let's go to the phones, as they say in talk radio. Abby, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell us who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
So I'm in the Philippines right now.
Oh, wow.
And I just had a question about immigration because it's very different here. But I also just want to say hi to my dad because he's also on the Zoom.
Wait, does your dad live in Idaho?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's another member of the Taylor family.
Yeah.
Well, welcome in.
Thank you.
What do you do in the Philippines?
I'm an au pair for my sister.
An au pair for your sister.
Yeah.
How many kids?
How many are there? How many Yeah.
There's 5 of us siblings, and my sister has 3 little kids.
Your dad is, as you know, America's sexiest grandpa. You know that.
Oh no.
To us, he is. You don't need to comment. Please ask your question and welcome. Glad to have you here.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering. I have a couple questions about immigration. Because it's really, really hard to become a citizen here in the Philippines. It's basically impossible.
Yeah.
There's no, like, if you're born here, there's no dual citizenship or anything like that. And then if you are living here and you're not a citizen, you can't own any land, you can't own a business. You actually can't even really work, like get paid here at all. And I don't know a lot about other countries' immigration policies, but I think most people think of America as being pretty strict on how easy it is to become a citizen, but they're definitely not as strict as they could be and as strict as some other countries are. So I'm just kind of wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Great question. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, the United States immigration system has been kind of broken now for decades. And I think the parties have struggled to try to come up with a solution. I think for the longest time, the Democratic Party thought it was to its advantage to not have a solution because they thought that it would help them win Latino voters, not illegal voters, but that they just thought that Latinos here would reward them. And now I think Republicans probably feel like, if this was totally solved, it would not be like the greatest thing. And we saw that in 2024 when Trump tried to block the, compromise that had been hashed out. So I think in 2028, maybe even 2026, the debate is going to be probably, what do you do with the 20 million people that are here, knowing that you probably can't deport all 20 million people, knowing that people are going to continue to try to come into this country. And we've done a pretty good job of stopping the flow at the southern border. And once you get past the bad hombres, what do you do here? Right? And the country may say, we do want to try to get rid of 20 million people. If it takes a decade, fine. And the country may not. I've seen some polling that shows once you get past the bad hombres, it falls off a cliff in support of deportations, even amongst Republicans.
Yeah.
So, Abby, I think you got 2 great questions here. One that Dan touched on, but I think the bigger and broader one that I'll mention it is, for so many people who love to come into our country unfettered and demand access and wave the flag of their country. Not always. I question that. I'm like, why? If you think Mexico is such a great country, and I've been to, I've visited. It's
Yeah.
Really great people. But if you think Mexico's so great, then stay there or go there. If that's your point of view, if you want to wave a Mexican flag in front of, run around the U.S. and protest, then go there. But the second point I would make is that most of these countries have much tougher and stricter immigration standards than the United States. To your point, in the Philippines, we are much more welcoming. And for these people to protest us, we have a system. Here's how you visit us if you want to be a tourist. Here's how you work if you want to have a work visa. And here's how you get a green card. Just because you don't like it or it's tough doesn't mean you get to jump the line or come into the country illegally. We are a nation of laws, and if we don't fundamentally follow those laws, then what are we? So I do believe at our core we need to do that. I will just punt for a second. I think the answer that Dan gave is very interesting, because I agree. I think it's going to be a massive issue. This pendulum of immigration has swung from, wow, we got to give everybody citizenship, to, wow, they should go out the door. And I think the Dems missed a moment that they're going to regret. And I think that they continue moments like what's happening now in the United States, continue to push people away from the Democratic Party into the arms, maybe not entirely of the Republican Party, but definitely not staying Democrat. And I think
I think one of the things, though, too, to piggyback on Sean, that's different than the Philippines is we are not a homogenous country the way so many other countries around the world are. We've always been an open country. We've always had an issue with illegal immigrants. They were from Europe, initially, and then it's kind of morphed into South Americans and Asians and others. But across the world, there seems to be a tide against kind of liberal, lowercase L, immigration. And what is that new policy? And I think that's where, as a party, we are struggling to come to terms with that era of the open border seems to be closing.
Yeah. So, Abby, two things. One, there's hundreds of countries, right? And they've all got slightly different immigration policy. Only like a few dozen, maybe 3 dozen, have birthright citizenship, right? So the United States in that sense is liberal, and because we have it, at least for now. Otherwise, you're right that the Philippines is much harder than the U.S. because it's basically impossible. And it's not just citizenship, as you point out. It's also the ability to work, make money, buy property. Philippines, I think, is on the extreme end of that. Maybe North Korea, but the U.S. is actually closer to the Philippines than to a lot of other countries, where it is easier to do those things. In some ways,
feel like Europe is pretty open, or what countries are you thinking?
Latin American countries, some African countries, some Middle Eastern countries. Europe is checkerboard, as far as I understand it. There's some that are easier. There's some that are harder. And no continent is uniform. Again, countries just have like idiosyncratic rules and laws. And it's hard to say. But again, I think it'd be wrong to say that. I think it's right to say that the U.S. is, if you ranked everybody on all these indices, the U.S. is closer to the Philippines than further away, I think. Okay. Let's the other thing I want to do is bring in America's sexiest grandpa. Let the Taylors visit a little bit. You all just talk amongst yourselves.
Hey, I'm just going to point out that even though they might be stricter with immigration, the reason they're over there is they're turning on their first reactor in the Philippines, and so they're being more flexible than we are. So there's something.
They are more flexible on just technology and trying to get better nuclear technology here.
Right. So you're there for your sister, who's also in the nuclear business?
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember that my brother lives in LA, and he came on one.
Yeah, we know all about your brother.
He went to Mar-a-Lago, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And so my brother-in-law works for him, and he's in charge of the whole Filipino side.
Got it. And when's the reactor opening?
It should turn on by next July or late fall.
Amazing. Chris, have you visited the girls in the Philippines?
We're heading over in less than a month, so around 4th of July.
Yep.
Okay. Should be.
So
that's your first visit, though?
Yeah.
Okay, could be a multi-part reality show, two-way possibility. So let's talk later.
So I don't want to be too hypocritical judging these people for flying Mexican flags in America, but we will be flying an American flag in the Philippines on 4th of July. And
I would hope. But you're not going to throw public scooters at law enforcement, though, are you?
No, definitely.
All right, Taylor, it's good to see you both. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for the question. Dr. Simon, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are after you unmute. What's on your mind?
I'm in Gardnerville, Nevada. How are you all?
Very good to see you. We're great. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I really appreciate this program. Reasonable dialogue, different opinions across the political spectrum. My background a little bit. I've practiced in over 14 states, the Indian Reservation. I led a major trauma center. Was one of the prime ER physician, trauma surgeons, general surgeons, about 2 miles from the border in San Diego. So immigration and this Medicaid issue connect. We really have an industrial healthcare system that is very similar to the military industrial healthcare problem. The amount of money that is lost in our healthcare system doesn't provide us the ability in a bill like this, in my opinion, to really put the resources where they need to go. And one of the hospitals I've been at is one of the highest anchor baby hospitals in the country. So I want to ask you guys, we don't hear about this. There is a huge connection between immigration and healthcare costs. And we have a couple big players who really don't work for the American people, Big Pharma and Big Ag. We are a disease-based healthcare system. And I don't really see how we can get an appropriate bill through Congress if we don't address the overall dysfunction of our healthcare system. I'm also was one of the busiest medical legal experts in the country. So I can tell you this, and I represent plaintiffs.
But you're a lawyer too?
No, but I've been doing this for over 20 years and connect. The problem here is the quality of healthcare in this country is decreasing significantly. We're using more mid-levels. And I see this through the lawsuits. And it isn't malpractice costs of insurance. It's the dysfunction and the negligence of healthcare. And so we have a huge problem that nobody's addressing. Are you guys aware of any of this? Because when you look at this big issue, we have a problem with quality. We have a problem with the industrial people taking all the money, and we have a problem with all the immigrants coming in that are getting healthcare in the ERs.
Yeah. So, Doctor, the costs to schools and healthcare are massive, and they don't get covered nearly enough, but they do get covered some. But healthcare and education are two areas where, again, this is why the American people voted the way they did, because they see it in their own communities. They see the degree to which their schools and their medical facilities are overwhelmed by people, some of whom do pay taxes, but most of whom, or many of whom, do not. Dan.
Yeah, I have family in Tucson, Arizona since the early 80s, one of whom works down in Nogales on the border, and I've heard about this for years. I think the drain on the healthcare system is not obviously just illegals, right? There are a lot of low-income people who use the ER and other things and make poor diet choices, etc. I think this is actually one of the openings for Democrats for 2028. You know, like, what are problems that we can try to solve that there's broad agreement are problems? And as you say, the healthcare system, whether it's the insurance side, doctors, we don't have enough doctors in a lot of areas. A lot of rural hospitals and stuff are closing. So as you say, the quality of care, I don't know enough about all these different pieces of the puzzle, but you're right, it's a problem, and somebody's going to.
It's 23% of the gross domestic product now. Where's all this money going? Yep. And it's not going to healthcare. I can tell you, I've been out in the rural communities for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Also being in, major cities.
Yeah.
We have a huge problem that is on an exponential level up that's going to bankrupt this country just based on healthcare.
Correct.
And when we look at Medicaid and Medicare, we're losing. We're not winning anything right now.
Sean, real quick, we want to get one other person in, so go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say I would defer to the other gentleman from New York to respectfully suggest that the gentleman and his committee potentially take up a special on this issue, because I think it is a great issue. I mean, in terms of discussing, and I from a consumer standpoint, dealing with it, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm constantly amazed by. Unfortunately, there's not enough time to go into all the great points that you brought up, but I associate myself with the problems that you've raised. Thank you.
Yep. Doctor, thank you. Grateful to you.
Yep.
Let's try to get, I hope I'm right. Tony, have you been on this program before?
I have not. I am a longtime viewer, and so is my daughter.
Nice.
Yeah. So we get two.
That's right. She is an avid fan. We watch you guys on the screen all the time, every morning. She knows all your names. Ma, Dash, Shah. That's what she says.
I've been
how old is she?
She's 18 months.
She's super cute. Where do you two live?
We live outside of Tampa.
Okay. Well, grateful to have you both on, and I'm sorry she's subjected to the program, but so be it. Tell us, Tony, what's on your mind, and thank you for being part of Two Way.
Sure. Admittedly, she loves Dan. My father-in-law watches Fox News all the time. One day she just starts going, Dad, 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 Dad. They look at the screen and Dan is on, I think he was on Jesse Waters or something like that. It was pretty funny.
That's cute.
But I have
Amazing.
questions for all three of you, real
Yes,
quick
sir.
ones.
Yep.
Got to go with my favorite Democrat first, though. Dan, who are you most nervous about in terms of maybe somebody in Trump's cabinet for 2028? Do you feel at all that maybe Bessent has any kind of chance there? I know people have talked about him. Obviously, he's not a politician, but the way that he's handled things with regards to the tariffs, people look at him as a very solid figure. What are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, boy, I have not heard of his interest to run for public office. You're right, he'd be formidable. But I haven't seen his retail political skills. JD Vance and Marco Rubio are the first two that come to mind. I think both of them, for slightly different reasons, would be extremely formidable. They come across as less harsh, but they have at least today, the backing of the MAGA base, and I think they have more crossover appeal without all the scar tissue than Trump has.
Yeah, I'll just say, Dan, I mean, this is JD Vance's to lose. I think Marco could give him a run. There's a couple others that could be formidable, and I don't think Bassett has any desire, at least that he's ever expressed about elected office.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. It's one of those things I saw. I found it very interesting. I was kind of curious as to your take. Sean, how do you think the administration has kind of thread the needle so far with regards to the stuff between Trump and Musk? I feel like they've deflected well. I was wondering how you would grade it.
Excellent question. I give them an A on this. Normally Trump, I mean, if you watch, and it's not the administration, this is Donald Trump. His instincts are, I mean, like no one's telling him what to do. He's either doing it or he's not. This is all him. And the way he handled it when he was asked on the plane, when it was just sort of like, look, he let Elon, he knew it. He knew where he stood politically. He knew everyone was with him. He played this brilliantly. And look, you've watched Elon slowly delete tweets and then do his little flag emojis last night. Pitch perfect, A+, 10s all around.
All right, Tony, last one real quick if you can.
Yeah, Mark, it's actually for you. Really random question, but I'm a huge fan of The Apprentice from the early days. I saw a video of you not too long ago. It was back, I guess, in the 2015 when Trump was first running, and you were doing an interview in Trump Tower, and they kind of brought you back in the back set where they used to film the show. Anything of interest that you saw back there besides the boardroom? I was just curious as to anything, any kind of Easter eggs or anything you saw.
I saw a ton, but I was not a viewer of the show, so probably was lost on me. But I toured the whole thing, including the campaign headquarters, which, as Sean knows, was kind of not that upscale. It was in Trump Tower, but it was in the old space and it hadn't really been fixed up, so it was pretty Spartan. But the boardroom was still largely intact, but the rest of it was just stripped bare. So it was not Hollywood glitzy. It was kind of like shockingly stripped down. That's what I saw. But I'll check my notes, and if I have more, I'll get back to you. All right, Tony, thank you. Very grateful to you for the question and for coming on and for being part of it, and for saving the show, because I was going to cancel without 3 new people, but we got it. Very nice. Sean, what do you have tonight?
By the way, I'm desperately trying to find a photo. I'll have it tomorrow for of the campaign headquarters on the 6th floor, just to show people.
What a mess it was.
A mess. It would be. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Tonight, obviously, we'll break down the LA riots, the big, beautiful Bill and Elon, and then Penny Nance from the Conservative Women from America is going to join us to talk about the back and forth between Riley Gaines and Simone Biles. Obviously, a lot more on Title X, but Riley is now responding to Simone Biles, and some interesting. Simone definitely didn't go through her old comments and tweets before she attacked Riley Gaines, and we'll bring that all up. So a lot on LA. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm being told there are no riots. So we'll cover the unrest and peaceful protests in LA, and then Penny Nance.
It's a different Simone Biles. That's the answer to it. That clears that up.
That's right.
All right, noon today, Citizen McCain, Meghan McCain with Brett Shear, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. Please tune in at noon Eastern, either on the Sure. Thank you. Please tune in for either join on the two-way platform to be able to participate in the conversation with Brent and Megan, or watch live or on demand on YouTube. 6 o'clock tonight, two great guests on Two-Way Tonight, where we'll run through the events of the day. Matt Gorman, Republican, and Ian Smith, the Democrat, will join me. And we'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow right here. So thank you for joining us, and a whole week of programming coming up.
Peaceful show.
Say again?
It's going to be a mostly peaceful show.
It'll be a mostly peaceful show. Good way to describe it. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for those of you who asked questions and raised your hand. Tony, Sean, and I are going to look for more for you on the Trump Tower. And have a great day, everybody. I'll see you at 6.